just became obsessed and started like telling everyone I knew about cervical fluids and all these facts that I learned about the body that I was like, everyone needs to know this stuff. This should be part of our basic education. And so, yeah, then I just became obsessed and very passionate advocate of cycle tracking. And it completely changed my relationship to myself and my body and understanding my body in a whole new way. Welcome to the Infinite Earth Body Podcast, where we talk about bodies, healing, pleasure, and share stories of embodiment on Earth. I'm your host, Maya, and I'd like to start by taking a few moments to ground, root into our connection to the Earth, call in the support of our most benevolent ancestors and guides, and set the intention for this shared space of connection to be dedicated to the liberation of all beings. Today is Menstrual Magic Moon Day. We're going to be featuring stories about menstrual cycles, fertility, contraception, pregnancy, and birth. Last week, I interviewed my friend Silvia, and today I invited Silvia to interview me. So I'll pass it to you, Silvia.
Great. Maya Tokunaga Jensen is a holistic sexual reproductive health educator, fertility awareness educator, and embodiment guide. Maya's work centers inclusivity, trauma-informed care, and uplifting reproductive justice. Maya has been charting their cycle for about 17 years. And fun fact, Maya composed and performed the music we hear at the beginning and end of this podcast. So, Maya, what was your experience when you started your period?
Yeah, when I started my period, I was 10 years old and I didn't know anything about periods beforehand. So I was not expecting anything. I didn't know what to expect. And then all of a sudden I thought that I pooped my pants. I was like really confused. All of a sudden I saw some like brown stuff in my underwear and I was very confused how this happened and how I didn't feel anything. And I think it happened 2 days in a row. And then my mom had noticed and was like, oh, this is your period. This is what's going on. And so she didn't really tell me that much about it. She told me that she was also really young when she got her period, that she was faster than a lot of her friends, and told me this funny story about like her and one other girl in their school had gotten their periods and that they were really like ashamed because they were the only ones, but that the other girl told her, you know, we heard that Americans get their periods too. And she was like, this was in Japan back in the day, and my mom was somehow like comforted by that, being like, oh, I guess American people get their period too. So it's like just a funny random story that she shared with me. But I
Mm-hmm.
was super embarrassed because none of my friends, I'm pretty sure, had had their period yet. They were all, based on what I could tell, none of them had started puberty yet, and I was way earlier than everyone else. So I was completely embarrassed and
Mm-hmm.
ashamed and didn't tell anybody. And it was like this deep, dark secret I had for years, being like, nobody
Mm.
can know. And when there was like a beach day where we were all going to the beach to go swimming, and like I didn't know how to use tampons yet. And I obviously couldn't go in the water with a pad on. And I was like just so embarrassed and being like, I just don't feel like going swimming today. And just being really awkward and feeling like I had to lie about why I couldn't go in the water. So yeah, I had a lot of shame and embarrassment about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we hear so many different stories about our periods, and it really spans the whole range of different emotions. Every person's experience is really different. Do you remember feeling relieved in any way when one of your friends or peers got their period a few years after you?
I'm trying to remember when that happened, that it really felt like at least a few years later. So I don't have
Mm-hmm.
a really significant memory of when that shifted, when it was like, okay, now everybody else has their period and this is something I can talk about. I guess it
Mm-hmm.
was probably, yeah, a couple years later in middle school, but nothing really stands out particularly of when that shifted and when the
Mm-hmm.
embarrassment went away. So I guess it was um maybe gradual, or I don't know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it definitely sounds like the predominant feelings for a while were embarrassment and shame. Hmm.
Hmm.
And what would you say was your journey like getting into cycle tracking?
Yeah, I started tracking my cycle when well, I had been on hormonal birth control on and off. So when I was a teenager, like doctors started, when I was about 18, I think doctors started pressuring me to be on hormonal birth control. And um, I didn't Yeah, I didn't want to stay on it long term. I was just kind of like obsessively researching to see what side effects were, and I was seeing that anxiety and depression there's increased rates for people who have hormonal birth control. And back then
Mm-hmm.
was less research than there is now. Like now there's a lot more robust research that shows that that's the case, but even then there was already like early research that was out. And also I had read about like that people's testosterone levels would be reduced from being on hormonal birth control, and that even after going off of it for years that they never completely come back. And I know
Mm-hmm.
testosterone is like really connected to sex drive, and I was very didn't want to just make potentially permanent changes to my body through hormonal being on hormonal birth control for a while, and I definitely didn't want to increase my chance of making anxiety and depression worse, since I had already struggled with anxiety and depression for years. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was just searching for alternatives. And then I found out about the fertility awareness method of cycle tracking, what some people also call the symptothermal method, or there's some different
Right.
names for it. But I was completely shocked and blown away when I learned about it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
how did we not learn this basic information? I can't believe that we're only potentially fertile, just a handful of days per cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just became obsessed, and I bought the book Taking Charge of Your Fertility, and
Mm-hmm.
just became obsessed and started like telling everyone I knew about cervical fluids and all these facts that I learned about the body, that I was like, everyone needs to know this stuff. This should be part of our basic education. And so, yeah, then I just became obsessed and very passionate advocate of cycle tracking. And it completely changed my relationship to myself and my body and understanding my body in a whole new way. So, yeah, that's how I got into cycle tracking.
Yeah, so relatable, especially those pieces of like, oh, I want everybody to know more about this. I can definitely relate to that. How would you say your experience with your cycle has evolved over the years through different phases of your life?
Yeah, well, I think once I started tracking my cycle in this way, it opened me up to understanding more nuances about the different phases of my cycle. I think,
Mm.
well, after I moved out of feeling shame and then moved into
Mm-hmm.
kind of like cycling being normal. And then later on, I think in my late teens and early 20s, I started becoming actually more passionate about like just menstrual cycle education and learning more about, making my own cloth pads and getting one of the
Mm-hmm.
like the first menstrual cups. There were only like two cups on the market then, and I was like in these forums, like reading all about people's
Yes.
experiences with menstrual cups. And
I remember those days.
yeah, it was early days of the internet. And then I tried one that was like natural rubber that turned out to
Mm-hmm.
be too stiff for me, and then I ended up getting a silicone one. And so yeah, anyway, I became like really just passionate about menstrual awareness and education, and was um, doing info shares with people in my community. And then later on, when I learned about cycle tracking, it was like a whole new world of understanding my cycle. Before, I was really just focused on the blood flow days, the really obvious days of the cycle. And then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
found out that there's a follicular phase, and that you can predict around when ovulation happens, and the luteal phase, and that there's all these really subtle changes that we're going through all the time. Like every day we have different hormone levels, and that can affect our mood and how our body feels. And so it just opened me up to understanding what the days leading up to ovulation feel like, and then right after ovulation when the hormones drop, like a different feeling. And then again, like the progesterone feeling through the luteal phase, and then when the both estrogen and progesterone drop right before the period, like all these subtleties and nuances that I could tune
Mm-hmm.
into and appreciate in a whole other way. And so I think my experience of cycling has just gotten deeper all the time. Like every year, I'm have a deeper experience of connection to my cycle. And it's almost like I love my cycle more and more, even when I have really hard cycles where my PMS feels worse, I'm having more physical symptoms, and I'm feeling a lot worse in my blood flow days. Like those are times when I feel like my body's communicating to me that I'm like, oh, I haven't been taking as good care of my body, so this is why I'm having a rougher cycle this time around. And so it's always just this beautiful relationship with my body, and understanding like the seasonal changes of nature playing out in my body. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like there's all these different layers of understanding that have come over time that you've been able to integrate in different ways. And I'm hearing like a lot of your like embodiment practice really kind of growing alongside your relationship with your cycles. And, as we said at the beginning of our conversation, you've been tracking your cycles for about 17 years. Um, so could you tell us a little bit about what your journey was like in becoming a fertility awareness educator?
Yeah, so as I shared, when I started tracking my cycle, I was just telling everyone I knew, and there was a few people who wanted to learn for contraception. And so there was a few
Mm-hmm.
friends that I just brought them my copy of Taking Charge of Your Fertility, and was just showing them the charts and just giving like all these lessons on how to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
people were kind of asking me to teach workshops, and it felt like a lot of pressure, especially when it comes to contraception, because if you make a mistake, obviously there's major consequences, and
Right.
you want to be responsible for teaching someone who might then go on to like accidentally get pregnant. And
Mm-hmm.
as we know with this, like with, yeah, just the rates of perfect use versus typical use are really
Mm-hmm.
different. So even though this can be a really effective form of contraception, if you're doing it perfectly, there's a lot of people who might not be doing it perfectly. So I felt a lot of pressure, and I was kind of always studying more and learning more, and putting off teaching it in a more official capacity because of the responsibility. And then I found this training program called the Well School of Body Literacy. At the
Mm-hmm.
time, it was called Grace of the Moon, and the name changed. But I found this program. It was a 2-year program, so it was really intensive, but it was just amazing to connect with a community of people who really wanted to talk about this stuff, and who were shared this passion of feeling like it's part of our life purpose to share this information with the world. And so it was really helpful to just go in really deep and understanding. And there's so many things I learned that I wish I had learned back when I started, and I didn't have any support or any community. And yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just wish I had had supportive community at that time too, to talk about this stuff. Besides, the people that I was teaching it to, who became my community, but then later just finding all these people who
Mm-hmm.
were like just so deep in this reality, and Just love nerding out about like the intricacies of our cycles and our charts. And so, yeah, once I did that training program, it was 2 years. And it was also part of the program was working with clients and supporting them through contraception or for conception, people who are trying to get pregnant, and also
Mm-hmm.
supporting their cycle health and supporting their hormonal health. And so people who have cycle issues like painful periods or different symptoms that they're trying to alleviate, or people who want to support their fertility and increase their chances of having a healthy pregnancy, and just learning more the ways about how our cycle is also connected to all the systems in our body. And so cycle health is really, holistic health, and supporting our cycles is part of supporting our whole being. So yeah, then I went into working with clients and teaching classes and finally feeling really confident about just all the years I've been studying and training to
Mm-hmm.
really start sharing this more widely with the world. So,
Yeah, and it's so beautiful that your journey with tracking cycles, because we could consider like tracking your first period as part of like tracking your cycles. And it's beautiful to hear how different things feel now when you kind of started this whole journey with these feelings of shame and embarrassment and feeling alone in it, to then like morphing into this beautiful supportive community and then going beyond that and wanting to expand that sense of community to other people through the way that you teach and you share information. I think it's such a change, like, or just a really beautiful journey.
yeah, I feel like I'm healing my inner child by just everything I'm learning and then sharing it with other people. It feels like, oh, all these things that I wish I had known before I started my
Mm-hmm.
period, so I could have been really ready and understand the beauty of the menstrual cycle instead of feeling ashamed. And then also with my journey into cycle tracking for contraception, it's also just like there was a lot of, even though I was really excited, there was also a lot of anxiety and fear
Mm-hmm.
um, of like, oh, what if I'm not doing it right? Or what if I mess up and accidentally get pregnant when I really don't want to be? And so there was just everything I'm learning now. It's like just healing my younger self who I wish had known all this stuff back then.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So good to hear that. And I can definitely relate to those feelings of wondering, oh, am I charting correctly? Am I doing everything right? Because there is sometimes a feeling of, um, yeah, I guess sometimes for me it can feel like perfectionism, like, oh, there's like a perfect chart and it has to look a certain way. And that's been a challenging part for me too, in learning how to continue my cycle tracking practice.
Mhm.
What would you say is your favorite thing about cycling?
I would say probably my um, potentially fertile days, the days leading up to ovulation is just my favorite part of the cycle. At the end of my period, just, after a couple days, I start to feel my estrogen rising, and it's just this amazing feeling in my body. I know not necessarily everyone might enjoy that feeling or the feeling of estrogen in their body, but I personally really, it feels good for me. It's when I'm feeling best and most energized and inspired. And I think as I turn 40 and I'm coming into this place of being like, wow, this might be my last, 10 years, give or take. Who knows how long it'll keep
Mm-hmm.
going for, but it's almost like every single ovulation feels that much more precious, to just really appreciate this experience of cycling in my body. And yeah, so I love just the fertile days. I remember when I first started charting and I noticed my cervix movement, that was also just a huge shock, being like, this
Mm-hmm.
is a huge change. I can't believe my cervix moves and changes this much within just a few days. I can't
Yes.
believe I never learned this. So that's also just connecting with my cervix, is also just, such a cool experience. Like the cervix is a whole physical and energetic portal that is something that, we might not have that much connection to necessarily unless we're like
Mhm.
getting a pap smear or giving birth, but
Mhm.
just understanding how the cervix can also have a lot of sensation that might be cut off for some people, but that, yeah, there's this whole journey of connecting with the cervix and connecting with the uterus in general. Just my embodiment in my uterus is really fascinating. And it's just like everything in my cycle and everything in embodiment. It feels like this never-ending journey. And one of my big teachers in like womb uterus embodiment is Pankitsani Indija Mama. I did a workshop with her, I think, gosh, it was like 10, 11 years ago, the first time I did a workshop with her in Chicago. She was visiting Chicago, and she was just telling us that she can feel when her uterus is out of place. Like if she has stress
Wow.
or does certain things, she's like, oh, um, she calls it like matriz caída, like my uterus is dropped. And so she could actually feel it and just move it back into place. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
that's like next level uterine
Yeah.
embodiment. And so she's through other workshops I've done with her taught me how to like feel where my uterus is. And so it just has
Mm.
always also just this deepening experience of being like, wow, I'm connecting to my uterus and I can feel when it moves and when it grows and shrinks throughout the cycle. And yeah, and I don't love my premenstrual days and I don't love bleeding either, but I appreciate just the magic of those parts of the cycle too, just that there is this, even when it could be hard or unpleasant, it's kind of like this forced reset in my body of just like being like, okay, it's just time to slow down and take care of my body. And like, I don't love winter when it's really brutal, but it's like winter's part of, Earth's seasons and we have to honor all of them. So just learning to honor like all the different seasons of my cycle and again, seeing how much the cycle can change so quickly based on how I'm taking care of myself. So if I have a few cycles where I'm really not taking care of myself and stressed and going through a lot, like I immediately see changes in my cycle. And then if I'm taking better care of myself, my cycle's already like just instantly in one cycle can notice changes. So it just is such a
Mm.
magical insight into the body. Like some people call the cycle the fifth vital sign, and so
Mhm.
it's like we can't always tell what's going on in our body, but the cycle is like this external manifestation of what's happening in the body. So it's amazing. Like once you can really learn to read and tune in to all these different signs from the body, it's amazing. Just like, wow, all the stuff that's being communicated through my body is amazing and magical. And yeah, even though I love cycling, I'm also, when I get to that point, I also want to just really honor the sacred rite of passage of moving into menopause. And that's also just like, I wish people supported everyone's first period and honored that as a sacred rite of passage and had tons of education and support around that. I know that like perimenopause and menopause are also parts of life that collectively need to be honored and celebrated, and we need way more education and support around people who go through that transition. So that's, I'm not there yet personally, but I also really want to support people moving through that transition too. So
Beautiful. Yeah, you have such a lovely way of honoring your body, but also honoring this concept of being able to meet yourself where you're at and in whatever phase, yeah, like phase of cycle tracking or phase of relationship with cycles. That's really, yeah, such a gift to be able to share with others. So along with that, you are a person of many talents. How would you say people can find you if they want to learn more about you and your work and what you're up to these days? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, I have a website called infiniteearthbody.com,
Hmm.
infiniteearthbody.com. Yeah, for the first couple years, I was sharing this work once I started going online. And, at first when I was doing it, I was just doing like workshops and putting flyers up around town. And it was more like word of
Hmm.
mouth, kind of underground for years. And then a few years ago, I started bringing the work online. And I was going by Maya Moon Cycle. That was a name that actually somebody in one of my early workshops came up with that name. And then another person in the workshop was like, we got to get you online. So I was kind of like uncomfortable being online at that point. But my two students who turned into good friends were both like, all right, this is your brand name. Let's get you on the social media platforms. And it's been like a really slow process of getting comfortable showing up online. And I really,
Hmm.
want to be there more to just, it's such a powerful way to expand our communities and make connections. So yeah,
Absolutely.
now I'm going on the website infiniteearthbody.com, and on Instagram you can find me at infiniteearthbody. And yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about cycle tracking for contraception or for preconception or supporting menstrual cycle health, whether someone's in the early days of their period, early years of period, or also helping to transition into perimenopause. Like we could do so much to support our cycle, to
Hmm.
smooth out those transitions and try to ease our cycles. So yeah, I offer one-on-one sessions and I offer classes so people can find me on the website. And yeah,
Great. Well, it's been such a joy interviewing you today, Maya. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you so much for interviewing me, Sylvia. And I'm so glad that we could just be collaborators and friends and co-conspirators and sharing this information with the world. So
Definitely. Yeah, very happy to be sharing this with you.
yeah. All right, I'd like to close this container and seal the medicine we shared and give thanks to our most benevolent ancestors and guides. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or on YouTube, and feel free to leave any questions, other topics you'd like to hear about in a future episode, or anything else you'd like to share in the comments. Please leave a review for the podcast, and if you'd like to go deeper in the conversation in our inner circle, you can join our Infinite Earth Body Collective Patreon. You can see the link in the show notes, and thank you again for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.